We're often asked what holistic dentistry is. Holistic dentistry is taking a more modern twist on traditional dentistry. So we still do all of the things that are taught and required and are the best standard of care with regular dentistry and traditional dentistry, and then we add a holistic full body approach to it. And it takes a lot of different angles for this. So the first angle is always seeing the patient as an entire person instead of a set of teeth. A lot of dentists focus on just one tooth. They put in a crown and there's not enough consideration into how it's affecting the rest of the mouth, the rest of the body, how the whole patient is living. So we need to take everything into consideration if we want to deliver the best dentistry. So it's taking into consideration their lifestyle, their beliefs, what's most important to them. All of these things affect how you should do your dentistry. And even if it is just one tooth that you're working on, you can do things differently depending on what's important to the patient, where the patient's at in their life, what medical conditions they have. All sorts of things can come into consideration. You can do different materials for the crowns. You can prepare the tooth differently, all depending on what it is that the patient wants. There are other aspects of holistic dentistry that reduce the amount of chemicals that go into your body. We'll put things on our fillings when we cure them to make sure that there's less monomers going into your body. We can focus on different areas of your body. A lot of the times people will have ailments in certain spots that can be caused by a tooth. It's not very common, but it's good to at least know these things. So if a patient comes in and they've had chronic liver pain and they have an amalgam filling on a certain tooth, it can affect the liver. If we're going to go into amalgam fillings, which are the silver fillings, do you remove them? Do you not? This is something we always educate the patient on and let them make a decision. There have been many instances where people have had ailments, they've been sick, something's just been off, and as soon as they get those amalgam fillings out, everything kind of heals up. Now, the studies don't show a direct correlation between taking out those old silver fillings and the healing, but they have shown to make a difference. What the studies do show is that your silver fillings do leak mercury, but that it's not a significant enough amount to cause any issues. And this is kind of a sticky situation because we're getting mercury and heavy metals just by walking around day to day. So it's impossible for these studies to prove that silver fillings are causing these problems because the amount of mercury they would have to leak would have to be astronomical. So there's really no proof one way or the other, but they are leaking into you. So if you want to be super cautious, yeah, we can definitely remove silver fillings for you. Most people remove silver fillings because they end up breaking their teeth and because they don't look cosmetic. So there's many reasons to remove them, and the leaking mercury can be one of them, but the studies are kind of inconclusive on it. So when we have patients coming in looking for holistic dentistry, we usually spend most of our time just educating the patient. Usually these patients know more about their own health than the average patient anyways. So we're just here to educate them and make them and help them to make a choice that's best for their lives. So sometimes we'll take out all the silver fillings, sometimes we'll cover them up, and when we take them out, we'll take extra precautions to make sure that the aerosols of the mercury aren't leaking into their body. Another big part of holistic dentistry is minimizing inflammation. So inflammation has always been linked to long-term diseases, heart problems, Alzheimer's, all sorts of issues. And so we want to minimize the amount of inflammation always. So the main thing in dentistry to minimize inflammation is your regular cleanings. And every dentist will make sure to do that. We have a couple special tools here like the laser and some special rinses that will help reduce the inflammation even more than just a regular cleaning. But the other thing that we'll do specially to reduce inflammation is how we prepare our teeth for things like crowns and bridges and fillings. So we won't ever drop the margin of the tooth. We won't ever put the actual crown below the gums. They used to do this all the time because they had to, because they didn't have the technology yet. But now we don't have to. So when dentists do that, it's a little over aggressive. They're not saving as much tooth structure as they could. And they're putting the meeting point between the tooth and the restoration, the crown or the filling, they're putting that under the gums. And no matter how perfectly you make that meeting point, that connection, there's always going to be a tiny little space that bacteria can get in, and we want that tiny space above the gums so that the gums aren't constantly inflamed, or else you're going to have chronic inflammation in those areas, which can be uncomfortable. It can be painful. It can be a little sensitive to brush, but the biggest thing is we don't want your body to have that chronic inflammation. One of the other important things about holistic dentistry is making your bite function properly. A lot of dentists focus on single tooth dentistry, so they just do one tooth at a time. If you have a broken tooth and you just fix that one tooth, it's totally fine, but a lot of times you're leaving that patient at risk of breaking more teeth down the line, and changing how their bite is to make it more natural is often the best result to prevent further problems. The thing about the bite, because I always like to look towards nature and mimicking nature and what nature does, because people from all over the world have had kids for the last 200 years, the amount of malocclusion, meaning the amount of crookedness of their teeth and their bites being off, has jumped through the roof. So that part, we skipped ahead of nature by having kids all over the world and mixing different face sizes and face shapes. And so that is one thing that we will bring back to nature, because that's something that is quite often off in a patient. Most patients need some sort of bite adjustment in their lives, and they don't know they need this until they get to about 40 and their teeth start breaking, which is sometimes too late. So we like to make these adjustments early so that we can prevent it as quickly as possible. Another big thing about holistic dentistry is fluoride, chemicals, and all of these things. I personally believe that fluoride is still good for you. It's a poisonous chemical, so you definitely don't want to drink it. And when I say it's good for you, I mean that I believe that having fluoride, the benefits to your teeth outweigh the potential harm to your body. So if patients ask, do I need to use fluoride? My answer is no, you don't need to use fluoride. If you don't want to use fluoride, we can work around it and find some other ways to keep your teeth healthy. But in my personal opinion, having the topical approach of fluoride, meaning just having it on the front of your teeth when you brush and then spitting out, so you're not ingesting any and only a tiny bit is absorbed through your gums. None of the studies show that that is harmful, and the amount of fluoride that is needed to be harmful is much higher than what is in. You could eat bottles and bottles of toothpaste and not have any issue with the fluoride. So we like to let the patients know what they're dealing with. A lot of patients vary on how holistic they are and how much they want to dive into this field, but most patients just want to know that their medical provider has their best interests in mind, has their entire body in mind, their entire lifestyle in mind, and isn't just, drilling a hole and patching it the same on them as they would on anyone, because no two people's mouths are the same and no people's lifestyles are the same. So it's a more comprehensive, patient-centered approach that we like to use here, and it really varies between patients on what holistic dentistry will mean, because it can mean something different to one patient than it will to the next.